So it's kind of the same question we asked to Brenda. You knew that you wanted a gimme. You found a personal story. How long have you been telling that story?
Oh, some years, a few years now.
And has it changed much from when you started telling it?
Right up to last night.
So we got the latest version of that story.
There were a few little tweaks.
So when you go back in time, when you started telling that story and now, what has changed? How have you sharpened it or tightened it?
The timing for me comes mostly from doing it in front of a group like this. Because there are some things that when I first put them in writing, I thought were laugh lines that you demonstrated again today were not. And there are others that you confirmed are, but there's usually only one reliable way to find that out. And so as you get up and use the material, you gradually learn to refine it and learn where to pause and where to have fun with it and so forth.
So 2 things I'm hearing right away. 1, you were willing to take a risk because humor didn't come naturally for you. But
this was something we'd all laughed about. That's the beauty of the gimme is, you know it's something somebody once laughed at. That much has been confirmed. So then it becomes almost a storytelling issue rather than a humor issue per se.
So you're really, one of your techniques then is to go back and find things that people laugh at pretty consistently in your life or tell again or were funny in the moment and then begin to ask yourself, how do you put it in front of a group?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you and I were talking by phone, you mentioned that after Stevie Ray and I laughed and I said, I remember you came to me and you said yes and you weren't the first, which really made me feel wonderful. Thank you. And see, now that was funnier when we practiced as well.
Right.
So then you said that you found someone who is not all that funny, who was actually a big help. Tell us about that.
Well, there's a guy that some of you heard of. His name's Darren LaCroix. He's a former world champion Toastmasters speaker. He's been active in the National Speakers Association for several years, and he holds a humor boot camp, which he has created product based on. And I just discovered the guy recently, literally in the past few months. But what I like about him is, one, and I've met him, I haven't had the courage to say this to his face, but I don't find him all that funny. I don't pound on the table, roll on the floor funny over this guy. He clearly has had to work at it, but that's where I am. And so when I look at his material, I can see how he's very good at breaking it down into very digestible, usable advice. And so that's been tremendously helpful for me, to get someone who's had some of the same struggles that I've had personally and what their progression has been. And he is funny. He's not one of the funniest people I've ever seen, but he knows how to do it, and I can learn from that. So that's what I've done.
I'm giggling because I'm sitting here thinking about 2 video cameras running. Our membership in the National Speakers Association, where Darren LaCroix is also a member, and Jack and Julius, how we will cut that part out, where I boldly said a guy who isn't that funny, and then Dennis piled on with, I've never found him that funny, and he's not that funny. So, Jack, you were wondering, how do we make...
We have overstated this.
Yeah,
yes, we have overstated
how do we make the DVD shorter? I think we just solved that.
Yeah.
I think we found 20 minutes we can cut. So, one of the things that has been helpful to you is then finding someone who's a humor coach, and they've given you techniques, strategies, tips. What did you learn from the extraordinary Darren LaCroix?
There are a number of humor devices. Many of you are familiar with them. And I'm gradually sort of building up that catalog. Because one of the poorly kept secrets of this art is that there are a lot of little tricks that the people who do it reliably and consistently use. Probably the most widely known is the rule of 3.
What's the rule of 3?
If I said there are 3 ways that are a sure way to influence any audience, one of them is to really know your material well. The next one is to really know your audience well, and the third one is to carry a gun. That's not a good example, obviously.
We can cut that out, too.
You create an expectation or a certain direction to get people thinking and then switch it. And that's the rule of 3. And actually, that fundamental pattern surfaces in humor a lot. And so I try to become more conscious of that, detect that, and be able to craft that. As a general, LaCroix says it's something like a train going down the tracks and then you suddenly veer. It's the creation of surprise, create in unexpected ways. And then, there's exaggeration, there's satire, there's all the things that are on your handout, I mean, in terms of some of the specific humor types. But to me, it's like I know what humor is. I know how to catalog humor. I enjoy going to comedy clubs, but for me, the missing piece was what are those very, very specific kinds of techniques that enable me to write humor. And I'm still very much a student of that, but I think it's an important piece the analogy I use is like watching people on a dance floor. And you can watch for quite a while, and you can pick up an awful lot, and you can get up, and you can probably kind of do it after a while. But it's usually also very helpful to have someone who calls you aside and says, did you notice that they're doing this? Or you're not quite getting this part right. And really coaching you in that nitty-gritty. And that's what some of LaCroix's material has done for me, and other people that in this association have done for me.
And how long did you work with Darren?
Well, I'm literally just working off his CDs.
Really?
Yeah.
And how many
yeah.
CDs?
Oh, it's a dozen CDs. Are we making this an infomercial now?
Dozen
It's
CD
good
set
stuff.
for
It's
Darren
good stuff.
LaCroix, the amazing
Yeah.
Darren LaCroix.
Yeah.